आप इतना कर्जा लेके बिना पेमेंट के नहीं कर सकते हो, और जब क्रैश होगा सब टैक्स पेयर मनी इन हरामजादों को बेल आउट करने में होगा जो हुए हैं। वालों को सब पैसा मिलेगा, जो उनको नहीं मिलेगा।
अभिजीत,
Whereas 90% of the food in Italy is shit. 10% is outstanding. But the remaining 90% cover up their shit, claiming, this is authentic Italian food. You put carne powder in your pasta. It's disgusting. You must learn from me. Pay me consultancy fees of 10 crores and I'll teach you how to make. टमाटर में लहसुन पका के उसमें मैकरोनी डालने के लिए 10 करोड़ तुमसे कंसल्टेंसी फी लेंगे। 95% ऑफ जनरल पॉपुलेशन भी, 95% ऑफ गे लोग भी, आई मीन लेफ्ट विंग सबसे ज्यादा कुटिल, दो कौड़ी के और राइट विंग का प्रॉब्लम है आप कोई कम जो पर आप समझते हो आपकी आप सब चाणक्य हो, और आपके जो चाणक्य हैं वो चाणक्य के पैर के धूल भी होने के लायक नहीं है।
मास्क उतारो जी सीजन 2 में आप सबका स्वागत है। आज हम बात करेंगे वोकिज्म पे। You know, Victor David Hanson calls this wokeism as a cruel and a dangerous cult. I read somewhere that wokeism started in Africa to fight against the indiscrimination, oppression and denial of LGBTQ. Let's talk about it with one and only Abhijit Mitra, who's the right person to speak on it and basically expose the naked truth that we all should know. Hi Abhijit.
नमस्ते जी।
नमस्ते जी।
मार्क्स नाम सत्य है, बाकी सब मृत्य है।
आप अपना मास्क उतारिए और
बिल्कुल नहीं उतारेंगे।
लोगों का भी मास्क उतारिए जो
नहीं हम मास्क में
डिनायल एंड एक्सपोज पीपल,
हम मास्क में ही इंटरव्यू देंगे।
ओके
हाँ
okay, so you're going to expose the hypocrisy and doglapan of people.
So you know the thing is, maybe the implementation started in Africa, but okay, now it's getting difficult to talk in this. But what happened was, this actually is a first world phenomenon. It starts off in the first world because all your important questions of resource competition, घर नहीं है, खाना नहीं है, नौकरी नहीं है, they all get eliminated in the West. So you know, when equality, especially women's rights, starts getting equal, what do you fight for next? You've weaponized everything, सब कुछ मिल गया, so what do you fight for next? So you invent oppression where none exists. You invent new kinds of oppression. True, right? And this actually started pioneering by 66 people in Paris. They were called the 66 bastards, 68 or something like that. And what happened with them was, they were basically child molesters and sexual deviants. People like, for example, Foucault, who were known to rape young kids, and they wanted to normalize their behavior. They were like, allowing us not to rape little kids is a form of discrimination. Therefore, we must be, our sexual preferences must also be included in the larger main set. Now, you know, the great thing about France is they're usually very clear on their first principles. So what ends up happening is, all of these guys had arrest warrants against them. They all ran off to America.
America or Africa?
America, not Africa. Who will go to Africa? ये सब अफ्रीका की बात करते हैं, कोई जाके अफ्रीका में सेटल नहीं होगा, समझ रहे हो ना? हाँ. They all went off to America. Now in America, what happens is, you know, you come and you talk in a funny accent and give pseudo intellect. The Americans fall for it very quickly. So these guys were all seen as quaint little Frenchmen and whatnot, who literally ran away from French justice. And they were celebrated and normalized because they hid all their preferences in very complex language. Okay, if you read Foucault, or for that matter, shits like Sartre, see, there were really smart people like Camus, who won the Nobel Prize, who is a brilliant writer. Sartre is not one of those brilliant writers. He writes shit. People just claim that he's very profound because most of them can't understand or don't have the courage to say that he writes shit. You know, it's that line in Ayn Rand's not Atlas Shrugged, Fountainhead. Things are profound when you don't understand them. So it's a bit like
Like
that.
people do for Shairi, na? Wah, wah,
हाँ,
wah.
वाह 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 वाह. There was that entire movie with Madhuri Dixit and Nasiruddin Shah, ना वो क्या something Italvi,
I don't know.
set in some, it was all full shairi movie.
Yeah.
And I was waiting there like भाई ये तो constipation की तरह है, टट्टी कब निकलेगा, ठीक है. एंड आई एम लाइक ऐसा टट्टी वाला पिक्चर मैंने देखा ही नहीं है. उससे वो पिक्चर देखने से ही बदबू आ रहा था. एंड एवरीबडी वाज गोइंग, ओ माय गॉड व्हाट काइंड ऑफ शायरी, दिस एंड दैट एंड ब्ला
दिल
ब्ला
को
ब्ला.
छू लिया टाइप सा.
And you're like, boss, it's just bullshit, right? So this basically came about because of that. Now, what has happened is there are 2-3 different philosophies that have met. One is this wokeism, which is normalizing actual mental diseases. Okay. And the second is decolonization, which is a corollary to this that starts off in South America. Now, why does decolonization start off in South America? Because the white elites out there who oppress the indigenous population and the slave population, you know, Brazil had more slaves than the whole of North America combined. They want to control everything, but they want to get rid of the Portuguese and Spanish monarchy. So they invent a hierarchical decolonization, which is that whites will be superior in South America, but not Spanish or Spain से हमारा order नहीं आ सकता है, Portugal से हमारा order नहीं आ सकता है. Okay, which of course has been hijacked out here to imply that Brahmins should always be at the top of the hierarchy, Dalits should always be at the bottom of the hierarchy, but Western countries should say nothing about it, because if they say anything about it, it is colonial. And we will decide what is colonial and what is not colonial. Okay. So this whole thing is one of those, it starts merging. Political power comes through colonization, and the sort of rhetorical power, the power of expanding all of this, comes through basically finding victims where none exist. So normally you would say Abhijit Iyer-Mitra is fat. He's fat because he's a lazy, fat, good for nothing who does no exercise. अपना मुंह चलाता रहता है पर कभी कोई exercise नहीं करता है, walking नहीं करता है, gym नहीं जाता है. But as per this, as per wokeism, I am a victim of Brahmin patriarchy. Because it is inbuilt into me not to work and make all the Dalits work in the field, I am actually a victim of Now I can twist this anyway, because I'm half Brahmin, I am an oppressor. So it can be weaponized against me. I can weaponize this saying that I am not getting laid because society has made people think that fat people are not attractive. This is actually extremely attractive. My squeaky voice is extremely attractive. And it is society at fault. Actually, I get laid a lot. That's a different matter. But let's assume for the purposes that I am not. कि मैं victim. तो मैं जब चाहे मैं oppressor बन सकता हूँ, जब चाहे मैं victim भी बन सकता हूँ.
But Abhijit, you think it is an attempt by the left, especially by the left, to silence voices which doesn't agree with
it is both to expand reach and silent voices. Expand reach because anybody who does not want to take personal responsibility for their actions. Okay. तूने क्यों वजन कम नहीं किया? क्योंकि मैं आलसी हूँ. But I don't want to say मैं आलसी हूँ. I want to say ये मेरा body type है. So that. When I become inconvenient for the left, they'll say, see, he's half Brahmin. So he's an oppressor. So understand, everything that is a positive can be a negative when the left wants to cancel you. Okay. When you want, this is what happened in the Cultural Revolution and the this thing in China. No, first peasants were the foot soldiers of the revolution. When it suited them, doctors and science must be the flag bearers of the revolution. When it didn't suit them, Red Guards literally went into their nuclear facilities and beat their chief missile scientist to death.
Oh God.
Yeah. And then Zhou Enlai had to impose all kinds of restrictions on the perimeter so that Red Guards were not even allowed inside. There were factions. They divided the entire nuclear and missile establishment into two factions. And because the workers of one faction got upset with the other, they went and beat their chief missile scientist to death. Okay. When doctors are good because we are all scientific, we want science. But then Mao also said the more books you read, the more stupid you become. And so then they burnt all the books, sent all the doctors off to villages, and they made barefoot doctors. What are barefoot doctors? They are people without training who solve medical problems based on Marxist thought. I've got appendectomy. Why do you have appendectomy? See, it's because Marx says this is this. So read these books of Marx, तुम्हारा ये ठीक हो जाएगा.
Quacks.
Marxism, we need to understand, is a religion. In practice, at least, it's a religion. Marx said a few things. You know, every clock is right. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. अगर वो clock 12:10 पे अटक गया, तो सुबह के दोपहर के 12:10 में सही है और रात के 12:10 टेक्निकली अर्ली मॉर्निंग 12:10 पे भी सही है. So this is what happens. Okay, but it's a crazed religion for a post-industrial, post-religious world.
And what is this woke capitalism?
Woke capitalism is completely different. Now, क्या होता है कि you know we have this principle कि government should not interfere in business. But there is no corresponding rule that business should not interfere in government. I believe that is fundamentally wrong because it should be one person, one vote, not 1 rupee or $1, 1 vote. Okay. So, इसमें क्या होता है कि there is this whole problem which comes about because we have accepted the principle that businesses can interfere in government. That is not a good thing, especially in the modern day when you have conglomerates now that are so powerful.
Yeah.
The 5 biggest companies in America are bigger than most economies. They're all $1 trillion companies like Apple, Google and all of that, right? So what is happening is, first, the pace of innovation has been slowed down very, very significantly. You look at the differences. So for example, जब हम बच्चे थे, the difference between, we grew up with landline phones, जिसमें ताले लगते थे so that you couldn't dial when you literally had a physical lock that you had to go lock. Okay. Within our lifetimes, we graduated first to mobile phones that were like as big as this vase almost. Okay. Like when you were talking, it was like कोई dumbbell लगा के बात कर रहा है. 1990s में जो पहले Motorola and all of those things. Then we graduated to smaller phones जिसमें बस phone थी. उसके बाद polyphonic ringtone आया उसमें, right? Then it became camera and those cameras were really shitty cameras. And finally now we've graduated to these. But imagine going from landline phones in 1989
To this.
to the first full digital screen iPhone in, I think it was 2000. There was that Taiwanese or Chinese company which no longer exists now. वो खत्म भी हो गया. But anyway, let's say it was the iPhone which was what, 2007 or something like that.
Nokia or something?
But actually it came well before that. It was there were these cute little full screen phones, Taiwanese company. They're now out of, I don't think they exist anymore. It was in 2003-4 or something like that. Imagine in those 12 years, we've gone from landline through to a phone which has a full digital screen. You can kind of do the internet on it and you can click photos on it and you can hear music on it. To basically the memes that came out about the iPhone 16, which is that basically there's the form factor and the functionality really hasn't improved from
I've read that.
iPhone 1 to iPhone, this is a 12, so to 12. Okay. So imagine, all tech has just slowed down completely. You are not getting more,
Intentionally.
you got more technology, technological advancement from a BMW or Mercedes or Audi from 89 to about 2005 than you have from say 2011 to 2024. Why? And I'll tell you why. companies realized after what happened to Nokia. HTC was the company. HTC. They see what happened to HTC. They see what happened to HTC is still small. Look what happened to Nokia. All our phones were Nokia.
Yeah.
Today Nokia is bankrupt. You don't get, I mean,
Yeah.
नाम के वास्ते एक Nokia phone आता है, but you don't. They have decided they will, the pace of innovation is so great, it's killing off companies in 10-15 years. They do not want to die. How do you prevent innovation? You terrorize the population.
That comes under
वो
wokeism.
पूरा मिडिल एज ऑफ कोर्स ये पूरा मिडिल एजेस का जो चीज था. Why is it that between 2000 BC till the gunpowder revolution in say the 1500s, technology never really improved? Fine, you went from bronze to iron to whatever, but actual technological improvement nahi tha. It was only since the industrial revolution in the late 1600s, early 1700s to now that improvement has happened and it's accelerated. So what they want is, why? क्योंकि इन दोनों में blasphemy laws होते थे. You never, there was no such thing as the rule of law. You could be taken away by the state, tortured for anything, killed off for anything, your property seized for anything, whatever. When a population is a state of terror, you can't innovate because innovation is blasphemy. Innovation, what blasphemy is in theology, innovation is in science. You can't innovate till you say ये theory गलत है, मैं इसको कुछ नया बनाने वाला हूँ और उसको फिर आप production में डाल देते हो. So companies, what they've done is there was this really shitty company called what? Blackstone. Is it Blackstone? क्या है यार? Whatever. BlackRock. Same thing. We'll call it Blackstone नाम के वास्ते. They come up with this thing called ESG and DEI. Economic, social, whatever, and diversity, equality, whatever. Their initial thing was the more diverse you get, the more innovative you get. It was a bullshit argument. It is true that the more ideas you get, statistically speaking, अगर 100 आइडिया होंगे उसमें 2-3 तो valid होंगे. So try to recruit as many people from different backgrounds so that each of you analyzes a problem from a different perspective and you get it. But by about 7-8 years ago, everybody realized that this wasn't working out. Because DEI was not improving the profit line at all. In fact, it was making companies slower in innovation. But these big companies realized this is fantastic because it's slowing down everybody's innovation. तो हमारा नहीं होगा जो नोकिया के साथ हुआ था. Okay. So they then start weaponizing it. Now what happens is they realize it's not giving them profit, but they realize it's slowing everybody else down.
Okay.
The problem becomes, how do you make it universal? So you come up with an ESG ranking where your company will be downgraded in the stock exchange unless you implement DEI measures.
Oh my God. Okay.
ठीक है, so पूरा उसका ecosystem create कर दिया. Then they go to universities and say, now universities are only looking for money. जो खून चूस मक्खी होता है उसमें भी इतना खून चूसने का कैपेसिटी नहीं है जितना हार्वर्ड, प्रिंसटन, येल का होता है. ठीक है, हार्वर्ड, प्रिंसटन, येल असली में मच्छर हैं जिनका नाम है. इफ़ यू गिव जो मच्छर ने आके तुम्हारे हाथ को काटा, तुम उसको नाम देते हो चुनमुनिया या चंचल चुनमुन, वैसे ही हार्वर्ड, प्रिंसटन करके नाम रख दिया इन लोगों का. अब इसमें क्या होता है, the same BlackRock and this entire ecosystem that develops, they go tell them, see, we have a fantastic idea. जब तुम MSc या BSc देते हो किसी को डिग्री, उसमें you charge $40,000 per semester, but उसमें you sometimes even have to spend more than $40,000 in actual material costs and things like that. It's not a very profitable solution. Whereas if you come up with feelings-based courses and feelings-based PhD, that entire $40,000 is profit for you. ठीक है, per student.
Who's the brain behind all this?
It's money making. So this is now reflected by the sort of ratio of US debt is to US assets. Their debt is insane. Technically, if you subtract the debt from the US GDP, they'll be poorer than us per capita. So they are actually living, यार कर्जे पे मैं भी रोल्स रॉयस खरीद सकता हूँ, कर्जे पे मैं भी अंतिला खरीद सकता हूँ. The question is, can I pay it back? No. So 90% of businesses that you're seeing today, 10% are still actually very innovative. They're all under the radar. They don't do DEI and shit like that. And they're actually driving innovation. But all of this ends up, it's a sham to make a whole load of money. Because you know, when the subprime mortgage crisis हुआ था ना अमेरिका में, where what was the subprime mortgage crisis? Everybody blamed George Bush for it. It was actually Bill Clinton who started it. Bill Clinton के ज़माने में क्या हुआ, ये सब क्रेडिट कार्ड वालों ने जाके बिल क्लिंटन से बोला, भैया आप ऐसे कर दो कि नॉर्मली हम क्रेडिट कार्ड आपको तब देते हैं, हम आपका सैलरी देखते हैं, क्या ये बंदा हमारा डेट इतने टाइम में पे कर सकता है, क्या ये कंफर्टेबली इसका घर चला सकता है और हर महीने 20,000 दे सकता है प्लस इंटरेस्ट, तो उसका हम 2 लाख का महीने का ये कर देंगे. ओके, what changes the bankers and the credit card lobbies did with Bill Clinton was, उन्होंने जाके बिल क्लिंटन से बोला कि भैया ये काफ़ी होगा अगर मैं महीने का 2 लाख कमा रहा हूँ एज अ what as a builder. Builders earn a lot more, but as you. But I need to go get a certification from a chartered accountant or a competent authority saying, as a builder, he can earn 200 crores a month. I have no proof that I can earn. And he's not saying he's earning 200 crores a month. He's saying he has the capacity to earn 200 crores a month, which then led to massive house buying in America. They couldn't pay it back. But you know what the problem was? In a normal capitalist economy, the banks should have been allowed to fail for giving out loans like this. They were not allowed to fail. The banks were all bailed out. But the people who had taken loans still had to pay back all the loans. So they lost. So they got back of all the bad investments, they got back the investments because सबके house भी seize हुए. और जो bad debts थे वो सरकार के tax payers थे. The same people who had been buying the houses had to cross fund them. Double dip. You understand? They make debts that are so big.
And all this comes under wokeism.
Of course, it leads to the movement that supports wokeism.
Okay.
Because what you have now, ever since you moved into the information technology, देखो पहले इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन में क्या होता था, खेती बाड़ी जो करता था वो ब्लू कॉलर लेबरर था, जो मशीन फैक्ट्री में काम मशीन का काम करता था वो भी ब्लू कॉलर लेबरर होता था, जो मैनेजमेंट होता था या जो फार्म प्रोक्योरमेंट मैनेजर होता था वो वाइट कॉलर लेबरर होता था. अब क्या है कि ये बीपीओ शीपीओ से सबको डेस्क जॉब मिल गया है, और जैसे ही वो डेस्क में बैठ के मजदूरी नहीं करते हैं, टाइपिंग मजदूरी हो जाता है, वो क्वाजी वाइट कॉलर लेबरर माना जाता है. और उनका सैलरी भी उतना होता है क्योंकि वो सब डेट करके, गूगल का इधर ऑफिस जाके देखिए, गूगल का भाई क्या प्रोडक्ट है आपका, जो भी है सब कुछ जो है गूगल मैप्स शैप सब कुछ कितने सालों, 2008 में गूगल मैप्स बना था, उससे नया क्या आया आपको? कुछ भी नहीं आया है. गूगल डॉक्स भी उसी टाइम आ गया था. नया क्या है इसमें? कुछ नहीं. पर दे हैव 1000-2000 एम्प्लॉइज. गूगल का ऑफिस जाके देखो, हर इधर वो एक्सपेंसिव एस्प्रेसो मशीन, प्ले एरिया, दिस दैट सब कुछ है. वाई? बिकॉज इट इज अ वैल्यूएशन गेम. वी आर हेडिंग टूवर्ड्स अ सिस्टम ऑफ सिस्टम्स कोलैप्स आउट हियर बिकॉज दिस इज अनसस्टेनेबल. आप इतना कर्जा लेके बिना पेमेंट के नहीं कर सकते हो, और जब क्रैश होगा सब टैक्स पेयर मनी इन हरामजादों को बेल आउट करने में होगा, जो हुए हैं वालों को सब पैसा मिलेगा, जो है उनको नहीं मिलेगा.
अभिजीत,
और इनाम दिया जाएगा.
Now this another thing which according to a layman wokeism के against जो कह रहे थे, same restrooms, no he, she, them, they.
So all of this comes
What is
under
that?
what? This is all diverting issues from the fact. It's creating
Okay.
no social issues, so nobody focuses on the real issues.
Okay.
You understand? You have to create a constant state of agitation. Every failure has to be explained as a societal problem. So nobody looks at the bottom line.
So basically,
So, for
there's no
example,
injustice. Huh?
take Disney. They are so badly in the red, and they're doubling down on producing woke films that nobody is watching. Okay, there is a lot of social injustice in a country like ours. Okay, but in a country like ours we never industrialized. हम तो अभी भी देहाती लोग हैं mostly. जब तक आप इंडस्ट्री नहीं बनाओगे तब तक आपका ये नहीं होगा. But Raghuram Rajan will tell you exactly for that reason manufacturing नहीं होना चाहिए, because he is a shill of big industry. He wants all this valuation game to happen,
Okay.
so that actual empowerment does not happen. समझ रहे हो? So Raghuram Rajan's bullshit economics is what creates Rahul Gandhi's bullshit economics. Now, what ends up happening is, in America, there are actual issues on the ground, like black people have very high single parent issues, child abandonment issues, high violence issues, and things like that. You sort that out through actual intervention. You can't make outcomes equitable for 90% of the population to suit 10% of the population. ये लोग समझते नहीं हैं कि इंडिया में reservation is not the same as affirmative action in America. Affirmative action in America is wrong because it is giving a disproportionate share to a minority. In India हम majority को अपना भाग दे रहे हैं, क्योंकि इधर minority का share disproportionate है. पर हिंदुस्तान में जो हमारे सो कॉल्ड ब्राह्मण लोग हैं, 108 बार या 1008 बार गायत्री मंत्र बोल के भी उनको इतना दिमाग नहीं है कि वो ये समझ सके. तो जो ब्राह्मण मेंटालिटी है वो अमेरिकन ब्लैक मेंटालिटी की तरह है. माइनॉरिटी जिसका मेजॉरिटी ये है, वो समझता है हमको कुछ भी नहीं मिल रहा है. 50% जनरल कैटेगरी बहुत कम है. 100% जनरल कैटेगरी होना चाहिए. 10% से भी कम पॉपुलेशन के लिए. They have, so the woke mind virus, the decolonization woke mind virus is the same in American blacks, in Indian Brahmins. A person who recites the Gayatri Mantra even 108 times, उसको इतनी तो अकल होनी चाहिए कि पूछो कि भाई ये प्रॉब्लम क्यों है, ये आर्टिफिशियल सप्लाई डिमांड का प्रॉब्लम क्यों है, कि यूनिवर्सिटी नहीं है, कि स्कूल्स नहीं है, कि हमारे बच्चे जब एडमिशन नहीं मिलता है सुसाइड कमिट करते हैं. जाके सरकार से पूछो ना, why aren't there enough colleges, why aren't there enough schools, why am I not getting admission into the course. वो नहीं. घर में आप सिंपल तरीके से समझाता हूं. घर में आपने एक पिज्जा ऑर्डर किया, ठीक है. कोई मम्मी से ये नहीं पूछ रहा है, मम्मी आपने, हम तो 5 लोग हैं घर पे, आपने एक स्मॉल साइज पिज्जा क्यों ऑर्डर किया? 5 स्मॉल साइज पिज्जा ऑर्डर करना था? नहीं. वो पूछ रहे थे, मम्मी तू कितनी कठोर मम्मी है कि मेरे को बस मैं एक बंदा हूं पर मेरे को बस 50% पिज्जा पे हक मिल रहा है, बाकी 50% को 10% पे, बाकी आप 12.5% आप बाकी 4 लोगों को बांट रहे हो. Gayatri Mantra is what you're praying to the sun to illuminate my brain the way he illuminates the whole universe. It's a prayer for education. Imagine 108 times you are saying this और तुम्हारे भेजे के अंदर थोड़ा सा भी बुद्धि लाइट नहीं जा रहा है. तुम्हारा सब भेजा पिछवाड़े से निकल रहा है.
अच्छा, ये this even our Supreme Court said something about it. This them, they pronouns क्यों change कर
I
देते?
don't take the Supreme Court seriously.
No, but why? What is this thing? This whole game of pronouns. अपनी मर्जी के pronouns बना रहे हैं. What is this? Is this basically to distract, like you say, from the real issues?
हिंदुस्तानी देखिए ज़्यादातर बंदर होते हैं. उसने देख लिया कि वो ऐसे अपना सर खुजला रहा है, बंदर भी अपना सर खुजलाएगा. ओके. अमेरिका में इट्स बीइंग डन टू डिस्ट्रैक्ट. हियर इट्स अ कंप्लीट नॉन इशू. बट यू नो द प्रॉब्लम कि हिंदुस्तान के जो एलिट हैं, जो लटियंस के बंगलों में रहते हैं, सरकारी बंगलों में भी, सीजेआई बंगलों में भी, और पृथ्वीराज रोड, अमृता शेरगिल मार्ग या मालाबार हिल्स बॉम्बे में या बोट क्लब रोड मद्रास में जो रहते हैं, वो अपने आप को हिंदुस्तानी नहीं समझते हैं. वो कॉन्वर्सेशंस करते हैं जो न्यूयॉर्क में, पेरिस में, लंदन में हो रहा है. हम सब काले बंदर हैं, वो सब गोरे के औलाद हैं. तो वो इंटरनेशनलिस्ट बात करने चाहते हैं. क्योंकि देखिए, अभिजीत मित्रा का वैलिडेशन सुप्रीम कोर्ट के लिए काफ़ी नहीं है. वो युवाल हरारी का वैलिडेशन चाहते हैं, वो बराक ओबामा का वैलिडेशन चाहते हैं, वो रॉथस्चाइल्ड्स का वैलिडेशन चाहते हैं, और जॉर्ज सोरोस.
माइंडसेट है.
सी आई हेट यूजिंग दैट वर्ड कॉलोनाइज्ड, पर हमारे देश में जो अपर क्लास है वो बेसिकली काले बंदर हैं. It's that simple. You look at our industrial elite, all the elites, they don't want to have conversations localized to India. They want to have this sort of globalist. So understand, globalism is a Marxist thing,
Okay.
which is why a Marxist communist can never be loyal to his own country.
Okay. And how is this whole thing related to LGBT?
देखिए, LGBT का there is no mental disease. Okay, it's your personal preference. You're not
Preference,
imposing it. You have to separate LGBTQ from child molesters.
Yeah.
The problem is wokes want to conflate the two.
Okay.
अरे आप गे हो तो
Again,
आप
this is to distract?
नहीं, it is to, it's called intersectionality. The same way जो समलैंगिक लोग हैं, they should be on the same side as Islamists जो समलैंगिक लोगों को छत से नीचे गिराते हैं. चिकन्स फॉर KFC. आपने कभी चिकन को जुलूस निकालते हुए देखा है? KFC जिंदाबाद. हैं? आपने कभी गाय को जुलूस निकालते हुए देखा है? मैकडॉनल्ड्स बीफ बर्गर जिंदाबाद.
Like this is what happening in West. LGBT communities.
So it is called
protesting
intersectionality.
against Jews
So
and
now
pro-Palestinian.
look, जो गे लोग होते हैं, it is a natural thing कि भाई आप में से 5-7% बहुत इंटेलिजेंट होंगे और बाकी के 90-95% उल्लू के पट्टे होंगे. ठीक है, ये हर पॉपुलेशन में होता है. बट दे वॉन्ट दैट रिमेनिंग 95% टू बिलीव आप उल्लू के पट्टे नहीं हो. आप एक्चुअल में आप आइंस्टाइन के नाजायज औलाद हैं. पर आपका जो E=mc² ये दुनिया समझ नहीं पाया है क्योंकि आप समलैंगिक हो और आप पे अत्याचार किया जा रहा है. और जो जिहादी आइसिस का है वो मिसअंडरस्टूड है, वो आपकी तरह ही है, वो मिसअंडरस्टूड है. तो आप दोनों एक गठबंधन बनाओ ताकि हम ये जो सामाजिक शोषण हो रहा है हम पे.
Is there wokeism in Islam?
Islam is the most anti-wokist religion around. But this is why I support the Taliban, by the way. But जहां भी वो इंडस्ट्रियल वर्ल्ड में है, उनका वोकिस्ट के साथ ही सबसे बड़ा पॉलिटिकल अलायंस होता है. वोकिज्म इज द न्यू कम्युनिज्म. आई मीन इट इज द लेटेस्ट अवतार ऑफ कम्युनिज्म इफेक्टिवली. और इसमें क्या होता है, जब भी कोई पावर में आता है, वो सबसे पहले, जब कम्युनिस्ट पावर में आते हैं वो इस्लामिस्ट को मारते हैं, जब इस्लामिस्ट पावर में आते हैं वो कम्युनिस्ट को मारते हैं.
समझ गए. हाँ.
क्योंकि ये दोनों ऐसे हैं जो अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट
But
पावर
आजकल
इज.
तो they are like this with each other.
Till they come to power. When they come to power, they'll kill each other first.
Oh really?
Because हम सब हैं, these are the only two groups of people who understand what real power is. You remember that famous line from Game of Thrones that Cersei Lannister says, some people say information is power, some people say this thing is power, that thing is power. They're all idiots. Power is power. तो हम सब हिंदुत्ववादी, culture is power, tradition is power, prayer is power, this is power. No. Power is when you can throw a bastard in jail and not have to explain it. Power is when you can impeach a judge. Power is when you can dismiss the government. If you can't, you have no power. Power is when you can change the constitution. If you are not, तुम नपुंसक हो. Full stop. Communists and Islamists understand this very very well. हम ऐसे जो this is soft power, this is cultural power. Oh my god, yoga day, oh they're doing yoga, we're the next we're the next superpower on the market. Oh my god, Gordon Ramsay made a pav bhaji based dish. Maharashtrian cuisine is the next global cuisine. Do you know how much Italy earns from its food exports? सबको चूतिया बना के रखा है कि सान मार्जानो टमाटोज आर द बेस्ट टमाटर इन द वर्ल्ड, और इटालियन पास्ता ऐसा होना चाहिए, और उसका यूट्यूबर्स ने भी बना रखा है कि वो बाकी के लोगों पे कमेंट करेंगे. Almost 1/3, they are a G7 country. They are one of the richest countries on earth. 1/3 of their exports are agro-tourism. Okay, whereas 90% of the food in Italy is shit. 10% is outstanding. But the remaining 90% cover up their shit, claiming, this is authentic Italian food. You put curry powder in your pasta. It's disgusting. You must learn from me. Pay me consultancy fees of 10 crores and I'll teach you how to make. टमाटर में लहसुन पका के उसमें मैकरोनी डालने के लिए 10 करोड़ तुमसे कंसल्टेंसी फी लेंगे. इसीलिए इटली का जीडीपी उतना है. Here where we actually have incredible varieties of rice and incredible diversity. हर 50 किलोमीटर एक रेसिपी चेंज होते रहेगा. We do nothing to preserve it. So understand, like, I love Italian food, but I don't understand all this thing about it.
Achha, now you tell me this about sexual orientation and gender identification. What is this?
जब आपको समझ में आएगा आप मेरे को समझा दीजिए, मेरे को अभी तक पता नहीं है. भाई मेरे किताब में
why are we mixing lesbian, gay? That is
intersectionality which I told you about. इसमें मेरे हिसाब से 3 जेंडर हैं, ठीक है. एक जब आप मर्द पैदा होते हो, दूसरे जब आप औरत पैदा होते हो, तीसरे जब आपका सेक्सुअल डिस्मॉर्फिया होता है, विच इज आपका जो जेनिटल्स पैदाइशी में थोड़ा ये होता है. और इट कैन बी व्हेन एक मर्द में थोड़ा ईस्ट्रोजन कंटेंट ज्यादा हो और उसमें थोड़ा ये हो जाए. आई डोंट बिलीव दैट मेक्स यू सेक्सुअली डिस्मॉर्फिक एट ऑल. आई बिलीव दैट्स जस्ट अ नेचुरल फंक्शन. और औरत में अगर टेस्टोस्टेरोन ज्यादा हो तो आई डोंट थिंक इट मेक्स हर अ मैन एट ऑल. बट दे वॉन्ट यू टू बिलीव दैट इसमें सब शेड्स ऑफ ग्रे है. क्यों? Do you know a woke person is no different from a कट्टरपंथी Islamist in this? ईरान में अगर एक मर्द के साथ सोता है उसको फांसी दिलाया जाता है. पर एक मर्द अगर हार्मोन्स लेता है औरत बनने के लिए, उसके ब्रेस्ट्स बड़े होते हैं और वो सेक्स चेंज ऑपरेशन में अपना ये कटवा के एक ये बना देता है, उसको सम्मान मिलता है, वो एक मर्द से शादी कर सकता है, और उसका जो ऑपरेशन का 70% जो फीस है वो सरकार देता है. वो क्या बोल रहे हैं? आप एक औरत हो जो एक मर्द के बॉडी में ट्रैप्ड हो. आप प्लीज ये करा लीजिए जो अयतुल्ला खुमैनी ने आपको करने को बोला था. Literally, you understand how they're actually connected more than we believe. They have the same notions of power. They have the same notion. There is nothing more homophobic than wokery. But because this is where the economic aspect comes in. Because 95% 95% of general population bhi 95% of gay log bhi, I mean, so this is how, understand, it's a multi-pronged attack from multiple sides.
Now, how do we, Indian parents I'm talking about, I think even I feel bad for parents living in the West also. How do we prevent our children from getting into this, falling into this trap? Will dharma help?
भाई देखो, भजन करते रहोगे तो कुछ नहीं होगा, समझ रहे हो ना?
नहीं, not that way कि भजन करो.
नहीं,
inculcating.
Listen, no. अगर if your son is one of that, वो सामलैंगिक भी नहीं है, दलित भी नहीं है, ब्राह्मण है, स्ट्रेट ब्राह्मण है, पर स्मार्ट भी नहीं है. There are Brahmin kids who are idiots, who like normal will be 95%. Only 5% of the Brahmin kids will be actually smart kids. भाई हर माँ बाप के लिए बहुत मुश्किल होता है सुनना कि मेरा तेरा बेटा चूतिया है, क्योंकि हर माँ बाप को लगता है कि मेरा बेटा ही अगला स्टीव जॉब्स है. ठीक है, पर पहली तो एक रियलिटी चेक रखो माँ बापों कि तुम्हारा बेटा भी. दूसरा, जब वो चूतिया है, tell him to understand that all of that is going wrong with him is his own problem. Society is not responsible for it. And when it is, it isn't because of general category and reservation, it's because we didn't ask the right question from the government. Why is there not one college seat available per one person who wants to study? आप जब गलत सवाल पूछते जाओगे, आपको गलत आंसर मिलते रहेंगे.
पर अपने बच्चों को कैसे बचाओ? How do we save them from this?
Make your expectations realistic. Make your expectations realistic.
It doesn't come under like you have to inculcate good values in your children or no. It has
नहीं
nothing
नहीं,
to do
values
with
से
that.
see, imagine I am one of those stupid kids. Okay. मैं धर्म से क्या सीखूंगा? If somebody is offering me a way out, अभिजीत तू इंजीनियर नहीं बना क्योंकि तू बुद्धू था, तू इसलिए बना क्योंकि सब इंजीनियरिंग सीटों पे दलितों ने कब्जा करके रखा था. It's a very easy thing for me to fall prey to. If you're really stuck tight, अगर कल मेरे पास कोई पैसा नहीं है और कोई लोन शार्क ने आके बोला मेरे से कि भाई मैं तेरे को 5 लाख अभी दे दूंगा, you think I'm not going to take that 5 lakhs? See, the problem in India for the last 1500 years, the problem with karma based धार्मिक beliefs is, ठीक है इस लाइफ में मैं सफ़र करूँगा, अगले लाइफ में मैं पुण्य भुगतूंगा. We make everything esoteric. No, make it about the here and now and ask the questions for here and now. Okay. पर वो हमारे में capacity नहीं है.
But you think this the way, like this wokeism is the way for the government and for the business this thing to distract from their own failures
Of course it is.
and get the kids also the generation.
Of course, it's so that nobody asks the right questions. Everybody is perpetually angry. गुस्से में कभी डिसीजन नहीं लेना चाहिए, बोलते हैं ना. क्यों? क्योंकि गुस्से में दिमागी संतुलन ठीक नहीं रहता है. जब काम बुद्धि से आप सोचोगे, that is when you get it. Mark my words, after the caste census happens, if it does, assume Rahul Gandhi becomes the prime minister and caste census happens, the Congress will next weaponize Brahmins. Mark my words, the Marxists will find a way of making the Brahmin the victim and finding them something. In fact, if you are
they're already doing it. If you on Twitter, on social media, we're seeing this all. You know, the Brahmins are of BJP ruled states are crying, but not Congress ruled states. How Brahmins to pure dunya India mein hai na?
So understand this. The Brahmins will become the bastion of the Congress and Asaduddin Owaisi in another 10-15 years. Just keep watching.
It started.
And it won't be that 5% of Brahmins who are insanely brilliant. It will be the remaining 95% who think they are brilliant, पर हमको reservation की वजह से कुछ नहीं मिला.
You think India is embroiled in this wokeism abhi ki nahi?
Yeah, because the right doesn't have social theorists. We have a lot of quacks. We don't have real social theorists who have read books or read Marxism and understand their tricks.
We'll fall into this trap.
We've already fallen into this trap.
But like what, 10-20% or like nice 50-60%?
No, 100%.
Really?
Yeah, of course.
Oh my God. Scary, man. So basically it's a cruel and a dangerous cult. And
it's a cruel and dangerous cult जो राइट विंग में ना ही तो उसके असलियत का ज्ञान है, ना ही तो उसे कैसे मारने हैं का ज्ञान है, ना ही तो बुद्धि है टू अंडरस्टैंड द ट्रू नेचर ऑफ दैट थ्रेट। राइट तो वैसे भी किताब नहीं पढ़ता है,
हाँ,
सब इंफॉर्मेशन यूट्यूब व्हाट्सएप से ही आता है। प्राइमरी रिसर्च तो राइट में आई हैव नेवर सीन अ
never
राइट
seen,
विंग
yeah.
पर्सन डू प्राइमरी
Yeah,
रिसर्च।
true. Hardly 1%, 2%.
All these left wing think tanks actually go out to polling and ground research. The right wing does nothing. In fact, let me give you a very interesting example. इस देश में between 98 to 90%, depending on which polling you go by, जो लेबर है, अनऑर्गेनाइज्ड लेबर है, जिसका कोई भी हक नहीं है, कोई भी प्रोटेक्शंस नहीं है. Only between 2 to 10%, depending on which calculation you take, has worker union rights and things like that. Job protection, आपको sack नहीं किया जा सकता, etc. etc. वो पूरा जो है वो मार्क्सिस्ट ट्रेड यूनियंस में है. And Marxist trade unions they have avoided changing labor laws and everything to protect that 2 to 10% against the remaining 90%. But the remaining 90% also depend on the Marxists, because the only people who have actually surveyed that remaining 90% और उनका focus groups बना रहे हैं redundancy measure are Marxists. राइट विंग ने ना ही तो इन 2 to 10% का कुछ ये किया है, ना ही तो बाकी का 90% का कुछ किया है. राइट विंग क्या कहता है जाके, अच्छा बहुत गरीब हो, चलो ये श्री राम जयम 100 बार बोलो, जय माँ दुर्गा 500 बार बोलो, और त्र्यंबकम यजामहे 1200 बार बोलो.
Are we escapists?
Of course we're escapists. Of course we're escapists.
We're like ostrich, कि कुछ नहीं हो रहा मेरे आसपास, कुछ नहीं हो रहा.
And you know, this is a very modern, I won't say modern, it's about, it's something that you see happening in the last 1400 oddish years. देखिए, जब तक हम एक अर्बेन सोसाइटी थे, हड़प्पा से लेकर गुप्ता पीरियड तक, सिटीज में ना ये सोशल स्ट्रैटिफिकेशन मुश्किल होता है. स्ट्रैटिफिकेशन होता है एक्चुअली, जो अर्बन सोसाइटीज हैं ज़्यादा स्ट्रैटिफाइड होते हैं, पर इंटरमिंगलिंग भी बहुत ज़्यादा होता है. सो कास्ट बैरियर्स टेंड टू बी वेरी फ्लूइड. जब रूरल सोसाइटी होता है, फंडामेंटली वो एक रिसोर्स क्रंच सोसाइटी हो जाता है. तो जब से हमारा डी अर्बनाइजेशन शुरू हुआ, लगभग 1500-1600 साल पहले, दैट इज व्हेन यू सी कास्ट रिजिडिफिकेशन हैपनिंग. फाहिन जो गुप्ता टाइम में विजिट करते हैं, उनके टाइम में कास्ट इज नॉट अ इश्यू रियली. पर हुएनसांग जो बस 300 साल बाद हर्षवर्धना के टाइम पे आते हैं, कास्ट इज अ ह्यूज इश्यू बाय दैट टाइम. व्हाट हैपेंस इन दैट 300 इयर्स? बेसिकली इंडिया हैज डी अर्बनाइज्ड. फिर ये डी कॉलोनियल, नहीं, मथुरा बहुत बड़ा शहर था, वाराणसी बहुत बड़ा शहर था. भाई, एक तो शहर से अर्बनाइजेशन इज अ होल कल्चर, यू अंडरस्टैंड. जस्ट बिकॉज यू हैड 1 or 2 cities doesn't mean you were an urban center. यूरोप में भी यही टाइम होता है. Arab world, so feudalism, deurbanization, social stratification in the Muslim world, in the European world, in the Indian world happened at the same time. Europe is able to get out of it क्योंकि उन्होंने इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन किया. हमने अभी तक इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन नहीं किया है, which is why we've not gotten out of it. Okay, but when this happens, notice क्यों था कि till the Gupta period or even slightly after the Gupta period, we are able to defeat स्टेपी नोमैड्स. जो हॉर्सबैक पे आते हैं, हम हर बार उनको हरा देते हैं. जब हंस आते हैं हमारे, तोरोमान और मिहिराकुल और वो, दे गेट डिफीटेड एंड दे गेट किक्ड आउट. शाखास को हम सिविलाइज कर देते हैं. बट व्हाई इज इट दैट आफ्टर अबाउट 1000 AD वही स्टेप नोमैड्स, डिफरेंट वंस, टर्क्स, बट एग्जैक्ट सेम लाइफस्टाइल पैटर्न, एग्जैक्ट सेम वॉर पैटर्न, हम उनको ये नहीं कर सकते. आपका सोशल कोहेजन कंप्लीटली टूट गया है. जो अर्बन वेल्थ है वो मैसिवली रिड्यूस हो गया है. एक अमीर बंदा कैन थिंक बेटर देन अ गरीब बंदा फंडामेंटली. आई टेल यू व्हाई. आपका मन का शांति है. आपके 100 चीज़ों में कल मेरा खाना क्या करूँगा, मेरे बच्चों को कैसे पढ़ाऊँगा,
रेंट देना है,
वो सब नहीं होता है. हियर सो मेनी थिंग्स, यू हैव अ वेरी cluttered this thing. But you know, it's I'm always amazed at how Indians, एक चीज में हम विश्व गुरु हैं कि हम ना ही तो ठीक सवाल पूछ सकते हैं और ना ही तो ठीक डायग्नोसिस कर पाते हैं.
So basically, the end of our conversation, the conclusion is that keep everybody distracted and जो भी गवर्नमेंट को करना है वो करे, जो भी इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट को करना है वो करे. Basically.
The basic
so that
end,
there nobody questions them.
The end of the conversation, the summary of the conversation is कि लेफ्ट विंग सबसे ज्यादा कुटिल, दो कौड़ी के और उनका जो लीडरशिप है वो सब के सब शकुनी मामा है. और राइट विंग का प्रॉब्लम है आप कोई कम जो पर आप समझते हो आपकी आप सब चाणक्य हो, और आपके जो चाणक्य हैं वो चाणक्य के पैर के धूल भी होने के लायक नहीं है.
So future looks bleak, हाँ.
और इसमें मैं नहीं बोल रहा हूं कि मैं कोई महाज्ञानी हूं. मैं भी वो चाणक्य के पैर का धूल से भी नीचे हूं, क्योंकि अगर मैं नहीं होता अब तक मेरा अंतिल्ला होता और मैं नीता भाभी की तरह 100 कैरेट का हीरा का रिंग पहन के 700 कैरेट का एमरल्ड पहन के घूम रहा होता.
Are you a woke?
I'm totally woke, man. I change my gender every 15 minutes.
Okay. सिस्टर बन जाते हो तो मेरी.
हाँ, कभी मैं सिस्टर बन जाता हूँ. सिस्टर बन जाता हूँ कभी. You know, sometimes actually right now I identify as an orange mug.
Okay.
I've given you this interview. I started off identifying as a red mask.
Okay.
Then I started identifying as a cushion. And by the end of this interview, I identify as an orange mug.
Okay. So thank you so much, Mr. Woke.
Mr. Orange Mug. And how could you say Mr.?
Okay, sorry, sister, orange mug.
No, you. How can you assign gender? I'm gender neutral.
Okay. ठीक है, okay. Okay,
You have to say gender mug Shri.
Okay.
Sorry, orange mug Shri.
Thank you, orange mug Shri. Thank you so much.